Cockerel. So golden cockerel requires balancing. As you recall, it requires centering. It requires rotating on your axle so that you continue to keep good Tai Chi posture. Okay, what is good Tai Chi posture? Let's implement it right now. Okay, although our feet are apart, where our shoulders are dropped, our middle fingers to the side seam of our pants, our chest is sunken in, our butt is tucked under, our head is straight up. To be a good golden cockerel, we know that we have to create spirals. How can you create spirals? Just stand there and create spirals rather than angles. Create spirals. Create spirals. So when creating spirals, the hand that comes up, which is the forward hand, at the same time that hand comes up, the other hand pushes down. That is called counterbalancing. So as we stand there and do this, something's missing. Our feet and our upper body are not in conjunction or in coordination. So what we need to do is start with our left hand, which is the opposite in what you're seeing me do. Bring it circular and down, and shift our weight and come up. We know that this is a safety measure, that we are in good Tai Chi posture, recreating circles and semicircles and spirals. We know that we are centering and countering to help us with better balance. Okay? And we know that over time, our leg strength and muscles will get stronger as we are accustomed to standing on one foot safely. So what are the principles that we are addressing? We are addressing shifting of weight. We are addressing rotating on that axle. We are addressing spirals and semicircles to create safety and counterbalancing. Last one. We also know that that is a definite movement in Yang style Tai Chi. The second warm-up exercise, which also reinforces balancing, is kicking out. We learned that in kicking out, we're going to shift our weight first to the left foot in order for our right hand to come on the outside of our cross, and we follow our right foot as we kick out. Similarly, when we want to kick out with our left foot, our left hand is on the outside, and we follow the kick with our hand and with our eyes. Okay? I'm going to turn this way because I also have to concentrate and might be easier to follow. We're not looking for a high kick, but we are looking for a safe kick. Understanding our body, how it functions, what we can do to stay in balance. Warming up on a cold day. What else can we do to warm up? Okay, so we're going to practice and review our feet position, our foundations in which Tai Chi is built. We said that we would root down on our right and our left foot would be ready to go. Putting our hands at our waist this time. We're rooted down because we're storing our energy. This is a T stance. This is an L, getting ready for an L. We set our heel there, but the energy needs to move while we turn our hips and waist to create a bow stance. The bow being the front, the arrow being the back foot. We also said that we need to sit down and sit back. We need to twist our foot. We need to store the energy on the alternating foot, which is left, to create a T. We need to come out. We need to turn our hips and waist and flatten down. to get into a bow stance. We said that if we were very clear with our feet positions, we can then learn to do our upper body or our hand positions. So to say it in another way, the foot or feet alignment is important, and the upper body and hand positions enhance the feet position, okay? Then we said that we would then add on our upper body. So we learned that when we hold the ball, a Tai Chi ball, it's positioned where the bottom hand is 2 inches below our navel in our dantian area, and the top hand crosses over at about chest level. So can I see you do that, okay? We know that we can rotate the ball, so sometimes the left hand is on the top and sometimes the left hand is on the bottom. But each time we change that position, we are centered rather than uncentered. We are centered towards the area of our center or the mid area of our body for better balance. So once we do this, we know that our hands enhance the feet. So this is a T position. We know that when we get into an L, the ball moves, but the energy is not released until we move it from our back foot to down to the cross, to the tip of our fingers. How does it do that? You have to think it through. Sit back, twist step, T stance, hold your ball for centering, because you want better balance. You're taking an L, you're going to move that ball. We learned that the bottom hand advances to part the wild horse's mane. We also know that in Tai Chi that everything is done in unison, in that the energy stored on our right, out on an L, the energy has to move from our ankle to our legs, to our knees, to our thighs, our hips, our waist, our chest, and then our shoulders, then to the tips of our finger. That's not easy, but in the discipline of Tai Chi, our mind forces our body to do the proper movements because we think it through. We also know that we have an advantage in that our hips and waist direct our moves. So if our hips and move turn and we move, our hands will get there. We are just merely setting up our hands and enhancing our bottom or feet position. Sit back, sit down, hold your ball in a T stance. So last week we learned something quite new in that we were able to move at least 3 different ways by just merely turning our hips and waist. We learned how to brush our knee. We said that this is a way of centering our power or our energy, just the way we held our ball. But when we move and we have our hand positions in a correct way, and we can use our hips and waist, it moves for us, and all we have to do is finish by using our core to get to our final movement, final element in our movement. So looking at it this way, okay, we're refreshing our memory. We said that one hand, the left hand in this case, is pointing near to our shoulder, whereas the other hand is up higher in a new plane, new level. When we are in a T, we're like this. When we're in an L, we start to multitask. We start to move the top hand to our head. We start to move the bottom hand to the downwards, and we also step out. But in order for the energy to move to complete our brush knee, we need to turn our hips and waist, leave our hands, and only enhance it towards the ending of our movement. Sit back, sit down, pivot, Multitasking, here we go. Head down, heel, turn hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot. Setting up for a brush knee, all together. Head down, heel, turn the hips and waist, brush your knee. Finish it off by putting that left hand further away from your hip and the right hand towards the center of your body, as if you are going to catch a ball coming at you. Sit back, sit down, pivot, parallel higher on a T, creating L and a spiral all the way around. Sit back, sit down, pivot, twist step, T stance, glancing at that back or higher hand, multitasking, moving the hips and waist to turn you to brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, parallel higher on a T, all together, head down, heel, turn hips and waist, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down. This time we're going to do it one more time, but I want you to make sure that you're in good Tai Chi posture. Heel, head, down, turn, and when you finish, you should be straight up. Remember that pointing finger? Can you imagine it being your spine? And ask yourself, are you tilting or are you tipping? Sit back. You should not. Sit back, sit down, pivot, parallel higher, all together. Head, down, heel, turn, brush knee, straight up. Sit back, sit down, pivot, parallel higher, all together. Head, down, heel, turn hips and waist, brush your knee. Last one, sit back, sit down, pivot, spiral to your shoulder, spiral down all together as you brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, hold your ball on a T stance. Okay, so from what I can see and what I could feel, everybody's gotten the movement, but that's not to say that that's all. We all need some refinement of the movement. Okay, what I try to alert you to is that oftentimes a beginner student or even a matured student, they will follow their hand. Right now you can see that my Tai Chi position is out of whack. It's tilting forward, trying to get me to fall forward. What should I do? I need to sit back a little bit more, but not sit back like this, right? Because then I'll fall backwards. So this is my best position. So my ball is here, I'm centered. I'm on a T. I have energy to expend because my knee is not straight up, but it's flexed down, allowing hardly any weight on the opposite foot. The energy is stored in the sole of my foot. I come out on an L. My energy is still there. I grow, I generate it all the way through my waist, shoulders, chest and shoulders to the tips of my finger. So how do you do that? Is there a button that we press? It's thinking it through and making your core work for you. Okay? So you say, you know, I really get it and it's working quite well, but when I multitask, there's something a little goofy about it. Well, how can we fix that goofiness? It's easy. All you need to do is remember that she said, one hand is higher, one hand is to the shoulder. And you leave your hand there and you let your mind work through that energy. There was very little, if not any, movement of my hand right here. Everything is attached to my core. The only thing that I may say that I used without my energy, but I used my core, is the final brushing of the knee. But if I did it a little faster, you would be able to see that when I swirled my hips, my hands went for the ride. It went for the ride. It went for the ride, right? I didn't force the movement. I didn't do anything in between. All I did was set up my hand and think through what I needed to do. So can you see that brush knee, although it involves many different things all together, that if it were set up correctly and you thought through the motion, you would be there in no time, in a split second. So let's do it a little bit. Start and slow, pick up the pace and see if that validates what you just heard, okay? We're on a T-stance, root it down because we need to store that energy. Left hand closer to your shoulder because we want to do this. What do we want to do? We want to do this, right? We want to do this. What do we want to do? We want to do this. But we also want to do this. What do we want to do? This, this, and this, right? This, and this. But the magical area comes when, not when you do this, and this, but when you turn your hips and waist and let your hands go for the ride. Remember what I said. Sit back, sit down, twist step, set it up correctly. 3 things happen. Bring it to the head, set it down, put your heel out. Magic begins when you turn your hips and waist. Sit back, twist, set it up. 3 things happen, magic begins. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly, multitask, magic begins. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly, multitask, magic of the hips and waist begin. Sit back, sit down, pivot. I'm going to pick up the pace. All together. Turn hips and waist. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly, multitask, turn hips and waist. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly, multitask, magic begins. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up, magic. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up, magic. Okay, good. So, catching on, I can see that things look a little smoother. Okay? To make the point even more clear or clearer, I'm going to put your hands in another a goofy position, but I want to make that reinforce the premise in which I am teaching, to say if your hips and waist did not move, your hands would not get there, okay? So I'm trying to think in my mind, what's the best way? So I'm going to ask you to put one hand out here and one hand out here. okay? So it's something like this. It doesn't have to be exactly, but it's not brush knee, okay? And we're on a T stance, okay? And we're not gonna worry about our hands. We're gonna step out, turn our hips and waist, and there it is. Sit back, sit down, pivot. Switch the hand position, doesn't have to be exact. T stance, L stance, turn the hips and waist. So do you understand that we are not leading our Tai Chi brush knee motions or any motion with our hand? The hand is insignificant. It goes for the ride. One more time. Out, multitask, magic. Okay? Now go back to brush knee, and let's see if we can cinch that down. T stance, multi, turn hips and waist. There you have it. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly. Multi, turn hips and waist. There you have it. Sit back, sit down, pivot. One more set it up. Multi, turn hips and waist. You've gotten it. Sit back, sit down, pivot. Set it up correctly. Multi, turn hips and waist. You have it. Sit back, sit down. Hold your ball on a T stance. Okay, just a raise of hands. How many feel that they have a better grip on it? Raise of hands. Okay, so something's happening. You're understanding what you hear, you're watching what is demonstrated, and you're trying to apply it, okay? And Ken's showing me that everything that we do should be core related. We don't want to do any kind of exercise if our core is not involved. It's useless, right? You want that strong central part of your system, as strong as it can be. It can work for you, and it can keep you in better balance. And that's what we're afraid of doing, is falling. So what it is balancing, keeping that core strong. Okay? And Tai Chi, being a discipline, will help you in many ways. But it will counter us if we use our hands and go with the fall, right? Who wants to practice that kind of stuff? Yeah? Huh? Maintain Tai Chi posture. So what does it mean to maintain Tai Chi posture? Where's that finger? Where is your spine? Straight up like this. What can we do with the spine? We can surely rotate. We can surely advance. But when we advance, we have to take that step. We cannot tip and take that fall, okay? So to maintain better balance, I don't worry about where my spine is once I establish Tai Chi posture, which could be a way of life, in that I don't wait for Tai Chi class to set my spine up in the right way. And I'm not overemphasizing that straight spine by straightening it up like this. That's too stiff for me. I don't even know which is my substantial step. I have 2 feet weighted, and we know that in Tai Chi, only the foot that has no weight can advance. Why? Have you ever tried to walk with 2 weighted feet? I don't think I've tried, but you are going to have, wobble down and fall. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so this is lesson number 6, not quite halfway, but we're getting deeper. We're getting more involved. We're learning so much more about our body that if we kind of forget lesson number 1 or 2 or 3, we're not going to get up to the more complicated movements. So we want to be able to set the platform, layer, 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 so that we have a firm foundation, okay? And to me, each of you have gained strength, knowledge, and can probably feel a little stronger. But you look around and you say, how come she can do it? How come he can do it? And, you know, but don't worry about that other person because we're not them, okay? All right. So we're going to take off again and learn a new movement. This time I think you'll find it a little bit easier, okay? But like we should tell ourselves, everything can be doable and comfortable as long as we understand that the hips and waist have a lot to do with what we are trying to achieve in Tai Chi. The movement that I want to teach you is called grasping of the bird's tail. So when you grasp something, usually you're pulling, okay, getting a grip of it and pulling it. Grasping of a bird's tail is just an image of a martial arts-based movement. Grasping of the bird's tail involves a martial art movement of warding off. Your opponent is in front of you and you want to push him away to allow that space that you need. You do not want to push him away so that you are a prey because you're going to fall, right? So in giving this demonstration, we need to ward off our opponent, push him away with our forearm. I am in still good Tai Chi posture. Someone were to come to me and nudge me, I probably could keep my footing, okay? Then I'm going to turn my famous hips and waists, reposition my hands, and grasp the bird's tail. What am I doing? Am I moving my hand? So what am I using? I'm using the same principle. I'm coming up because I'm pushing that energy up. My hands are going for the ride. What I do on one side, I do on the other side. This is my T stance. I'm centered. I have energy on one of my foot so that I can alleviate the weight of my opposite foot to advance it. I am going to step out on an L and I'm going to ward off my opponent, the bottom hand advanced. Turn my hips and waists, reposition my hands as if I were to grasp a bird's tail or pull down my opponent. My hands remain there because it's like it's set up just like brush knee. I sit down, sit back, turn at my hips and waists, eye contact. I turn at my hips and waists, I push the energy out, separate my hands. How do my hands get back? I sit back, I sit down. I come up, I advance forward. Okay, let's try it, okay? And we can still refine it after we get the bigger picture. All right, we're on a T stance. Storing my energy, I have my ball that I'm centered. First part of grasping of the bird's tail is ward off your opponent. After a T stance, we're getting into an L stance. T stance, L stance. Bottom hand advances, ward off or forearm your opponent. Got him? You pause. Turn your hips and waists. Reposition your hands. What are you going to do? Hands go for the ride. Sit back, sit down. Turn the hips and waists. Contact at your wrist. Turn at your hips and waist. Push out. Separate your hands. Sit back, sit down. Come up, lunge forward. Sit back, sit down. Pivot. Hold your ball on a T-stand. Out on an L, move that ball. Bottom hand advances to forearm your opponent. Got him? Turn hips and waist. Reposition your hands. Sit back, sit down. Turn at the hips and waist. Contact. Turn at the hips and waist. Push out from the center of your body. Separate your hands. Roll back. Sit down. Spiral up. Lunge forward. Sit back, sit down. Pivot. Twist step. T stance. L stance. Ward off. Turn hips and waist. Reposition your hands. Sit down, sit back. Grasp the bird's tail. Contact. Turn at the hips and waist. Push the energy out from the center of your body. Separate your hands. Roll back. Sit down. Come up. Lunge forward. Sit back, sit down. Pivot. Hold your ball on a T-stance. Bring it in. Take an L. Bottom hand advances to ward off. Turn the hips and waist. Reposition the hands. Sit down. Sit back. Look back. Contact. Turn at the hips and waist. Center the body. Push out. Separate. Sit back. Sit down. Come up. Lunge forward. Okay, your turn to watch. Sit back, sit down, and pause. Okay? Watch what I'm doing. I'll do it back, and then I'll do it front. Holding my ball in a T, going out on an L, bottom hand advances to ward off my opponent. Got him. Turn my hips and waist, reposition my hands, sit down, sit back, look back, contact, turn at my hips and waist, push the energy out, separate my hands, roll back, sit down, come up, lunge forward, sit down, sit back, pivot, hold my ball on a T stance, bring it in, out on an L, ward off. Turn my hips and waist, reposition my hands, sit down, sit back, turn at the hips and waist, look back, contact, turn at the hips and waist, push out, separate, roll back, sit down, come up, lunge forward. Okay, time for you to watch my front version, okay? Holding my ball on a T stance, out on an L, ward off. Got him. Turn my hips and waist, reposition my hands, sit down, sit back, turn at my hips and waist. Contact, turn at my hips and waist, center of my body, push the energy out. Separate my hands, sit down, sit back, come up, lunge forward. Notice how much of the movement is done with my core and not my hands. Okay? So hopefully you could see that if your hands are positioned correctly, all you need to do is make sure your hips and waist work. But once you feel that it's only a hand motion, then you're going to reach for that position. Then it looks mechanical. And I think that if we can probably generally agree that something Something happens when you first see somebody doing Tai Chi. The very first time, you say, hey, what's going on? She looks like she's floating. He looks like he's, he has something magical about him. What is that power? And the power all lies within yourself, okay? But you have to know how to unleash that power, but first remember to store it. If you did Tai Chi like this, of course you're going to look mechanical because nothing's stored. You're just thinking through what the hand motion is and where you should end up you should be at the end of the movement. So we have to tear that all apart and say, no, that's not Tai Chi. Tai Chi has to do something with your chi, your energy, your internal energy that everybody has that you want to use as power to better yourself health-wise mainly, okay? You don't want that power or that internal energy to get locked or stagnate in you. You want it to be able to flow nicely, okay?
I don't know about you guys, but that was a very powerful lesson as far as I'm concerned. And literally, I have seen 1,000 of them that she's given. But what she told you today is at the crux of Tai Chi. Getting to have good balance, of which one of the important things is maintaining Tai Chi posture, okay? You gotta get yourself into, Tai Chi posture is the simplest of what I talk about getting into advantageous positions for gravity, okay? If you're in Tai Chi posture, head is up, back is straight, shoulders slope down, your legs are relaxed, and your butt is tucked in, basic, and your head is right on your shoulders. Everything is lined up in a vertical orientation. All you gotta do is keep some strength in both legs just to hold that position. And when you get used to it, it's a very comfortable position. You just say, I'll just sit here. And you can almost imagine, if I sit in that position, the only way I'm gonna hit the ground is if somebody knocks the legs right out from me, and where I'm going to land, right on my butt, because you're straight up. And then you keep that posture, but yet you move from movement to movement in advantageous gravitational position, okay? Using your core, you're trying to, it's the meat of your bones. Your arms and legs and hands, there may be the skilled position, so to speak, but the thing that drives the machine is the core, what's in your big muscles, your legs, your waist, your back. And Tai Chi activity, or the things we do, is to build strength, but also to use this reservoir to bring the energy out to the skilled areas where you have to do whatever you're going to do conceivably martial arts-wise, but you bring it back home again. Then it goes back out again in a different direction, okay? That's the martial arts part. But when you're just walking around every day, that's what you should be doing. You know, you say, I'm going to trip. If I'm walking and I'm walking down the hallway and I've got Tai Chi posture, I don't have to worry about, I got to get my hands out this. The hand, I'm a little bit off here. Or you say, and you get off balance and you just take a spin. You got Tai Chi posture, but you've used your Tai Chi skills. That's, for me, that's what I would like to get for you folks. It'd be great if they watch you and you say, you guys are real beautiful doing your Tai Chi. But if nobody falls and gets hurt and they can use their Tai Chi posture, their orientation of where their body is, and use the strength of your body, which is core activity.